My name is Pais. I've made my clients more than $15 million with Google Ads, and Performance Max has been the backbone of it. And it is one of the strongest campaigns in your arsenal. Most brands do run this campaign, but unfortunately for them, it is the number one reason why their accounts fail, because they don't know how to effectively utilize this campaign. And that is why in this video, I've condensed everything I've learned about Performance Max campaigns, including the overall strategy, campaign segmentation, bidding plan, etc. All of that, so you can actually profitably scale your brand with Google's favorite campaign. So let's start with what PMax is. Actually, it is Google's all-in-one campaign where you can run ads across all of its inventory, including shopping, search, YouTube, display, all of that. From a single campaign, you basically give your budget and your goal to Google, and its algorithm tries to find and decides where it wants to spend the money to achieve your target. Now it sounds really good, but it is not. There's a whole list of cons that come with this campaign, and I have compiled all of them right here. The major issue with this campaign is that it has inbuilt retargeting. It loves to go after warmer audiences. So if you don't take care of your branded terms properly, it will index heavily on your branded traffic. And also, if you spend a lot of money on other channels like Facebook, TikTok, etc., if you bring a lot of traffic from other channels, it can take credit for their convergence, therefore cannibalizing their traffic. So I would suggest you that if you're running like a lot of traffic from other channels, you should rather go with standard shopping and standard search campaigns, so more traditional campaigns instead of PMax. Now, other than that, a major flaw with this campaign is also that it can spend on other channels, obviously, like display, Gmail, etc. And even if your performance is bad and those channels are doing terribly bad, it will still continue to spend on those channels. So it is not really that smart. Now, here are a few pros with it. Obviously, you can scale a lot more with this single campaign because it has more inventory, so you can obviously spend more money, right? And the whole purpose of this campaign when it was launched was that it was going to be a full funnel campaign. It will bring new people from prospecting into your ecosystem and convert them to the very bottom of funnel, right? That was the goal of this campaign. Now, if you are considering running this campaign, there are some considerations that you should think about. So if it is going to be a full stack campaign, what I mean by full stack is, it includes everything, like all the assets, all the text assets, images, descriptions, all of that. If it is going to have that, that is called a full stack PMax campaign. So if you're going to launch that, you need to make sure that you already have a lot of conversion data in the account, and you are also going to give this campaign a lot of budget so it can also generate a lot of conversion data, because these other channels like display, etc., they perform better when algorithm actually knows what your customers look like. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to launch a feed only PMax campaign, and what that is you just give it your products, your shopping feed ads, your shopping feed, and it majorly just spends on that. If you're going to launch on that, then you don't really need to worry about this. You don't need to fall in the trap of you need a lot of conversion data to run feed only PMax campaign. That is not true. You can literally start this campaign on a fresh account that has never run Google Ads before, so that's fine. Here's some basic terminology. So with every single campaign, you can launch as many asset groups that you want. Asset group is the equivalent to ad group in the other campaigns. It is just called asset group in PMax campaigns. And each asset group contains three different things. First is the assets, all images, videos, text, etc. Then is the listing group. So listing groups are the equivalent of product groups in standard shopping campaigns. For some reason, they are just called listing groups in PMax. Don't ask me why, but it performs the same function. You can select the products that you want to run on your shopping feed with the help of listing groups. Now, audience signal is basically the audience that you want to give to PMax to improve its machine learning. I'll talk more about how to optimize audience signals a little bit later in the video. There are three PMax campaigns, as you might have already guessed, that you can theoretically run. First is your full stack campaign that obviously contains all the images, videos, text, etc. Be aware that if you give it like one asset, you'll have to give it the rest of the assets. You can avoid giving it videos, but if you don't give it videos, it will automatically create videos from your images and your text assets, and that video is pretty terrible. So if you're going to run a full stack campaign, it's better that you also give it the videos, and obviously it can spend on all the channels that it wants to. For feed only, you only give it the feed, no assets or anything at all. It mostly just spends on the shopping feed ads, along with a bit on dynamic remarketing. For assets only, you remove the feed and you give it all the assets. It will not spend on the shopping network. Obviously, I don't suggest you to run this campaign type in pretty much any scenario, so you can ignore that. Alright, let's get into the core parts of this engine of how to actually make this campaign work. And the first part, the heart of any campaign in Google, is your bidding strategies. You have 4 different bidding strategy options available in your PMax campaign. First is maximize conversions. So you're asking Google to produce as many conversions as possible within your budget. Then you can put a target cost per purchase on that. So with that, Google will try to achieve enough conversions to achieve your CPA targets. Then on the other hand, you have maximize conversion value, where you're asking Google to produce as much revenue within your budget as possible, and then you can put a target ROAS on it, and then Google will try to produce enough conversion value, enough revenue to produce your desired target ROAS. So target ROAS is generally going to be the best bidding strategy for e-commerce brands throughout the board. But if you run a single product store, then it is worth testing target CPA. In that case, TCPA can outperform target ROAS. So I would suggest you to try that if it is like, single product store, or if it's just one main product and one main hero product that you are advertising on Google. On a new account, you should start with maximize conversion value. After a while, if the performance is good, then scale it. And if you need to improve the performance, then put a target ROAS or target CPA depending on your situation. And as you can notice, there is no click-based bidding strategy available in PMax. So what is our overall strategy, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal is to produce as good of a ROAS and as much of a scale as possible. That is still the goal, right? We don't care which campaign type we are running. So if you're going to run this campaign, what is the overall strategy so that we can make sure that we can achieve our goal? The first thing here is we still have to try to spend on the shopping feed ads, because within Google, the best network that is in most of the cases going to bring in the majority and the best of your ROI is going to be the feed ads in most of the cases. So that is still the fundamental. Don't forget the fundamentals. PMax is not a magic campaign. You still have to go with the fundamentals of Google. So you still have to try to spend most of the money over there, because other channels like YouTube, Gmail, display, etc. generally outperform in comparison to shopping and search. And as you can see in this screenshot, it is, this particular PMax campaign is a full stack campaign, and as you can see, it is spending a lot of money on YouTube and Gmail and other channels as well. And you can clearly see that those are underperforming the shopping and the search network. This is shopping feed ads and this is search ads. If you want to check this for your own campaign, you can find channel performance tab within your dashboard, and then you can see this stuff and optimize it accordingly. So what that means is feed only Performance Max campaigns is going to be the main strategy, because that will ensure that we are still spending majority of the money on the shopping feed ads. So what I would say is that if you're already spending a lot of budget on shopping or feed only PMax or search campaigns, and that is going pretty well for you, then you can launch a full stack PMax campaign with a higher target ROAS, and that you can try that campaign to fill in all the holes within your funnel and try to bring all of those different clicks from different channels together, right, and fill in that whole funnel. In that case, it can work well. So that is when I would suggest you to try this campaign majorly. Don't try to run it on a new account. Then, since you're going to spend a lot of money on the feed ads, we have to make our feed strong, and how you do that is by optimizing your different product attributes, right? And the most important attribute is your product title. That is literally the 80-20 of it. If you optimize the product title, that will get you most of the way through. So regarding your title, you have to make sure that it is front loaded with the most important keywords. That is the most important part in the titles. That is what Google looks at and indexes a lot on to understand what your products are and to match it with relevant searches, with relevant traffic. Then you should also optimize the rest of the attributes like images. The whole goal with that is you want to try to stand out from your competitors and try to do something different from them so that you can get a higher CTR. Description is pretty much the same thing as compared to the titles. It should contain the most important keywords, and then you should also fill up your product identifiers like GTIN or MPN. I already have a full video on how to optimize the shopping feed, so you can watch that later after this video. And here's a good and a bad example. So this is a bad shopping feed ad because firstly the image is white background, and all of the competitors are also doing the same thing. So that image is not optimized, and also the title is really short. It could have contained a lot more keywords to improve the targeting to get a better ranking, but it doesn't do that. When you compare it with this other one, it stands out. It has a lifestyle image, so that is a perfect example. And the title also contains a lot of different keywords that they want to target, and it also has this sale badge, so that means that they have also optimized their sales price product attribute, or they are running some sort of promotion in Google Merchant Center. So the feed is really very well optimized. Alright, so next thing is campaign segmentation. The first principle within Google is that you want to try to consolidate as much conversion data as possible. The more segregations that you create for not for no reason, the more it is going to hurt your account. So first of all, you have to try to consolidate consolidate your data unless you have a good reason to create the segmentation that has a particular objective. So here are some really good reasons. First is performance. That is the most common one, that we use that a lot. So if you have some products that are performing better than the others, you put them in your own campaign, so you create that segmentation. That makes complete sense. Then you can have different margins. You might have a lot of different categories, and for some business reasons you might want to spend more budget on certain product categories within your store. That makes complete sense. Then seasonality, you might have some products that are only live for a certain part of the whole year, so you have a separate campaign for those particular products. Then you have your location, because different countries can perform differently, so you want to give them their own budget, their own campaign to optimize them correctly. These are some of the good reasons that you can use to actually segment your campaigns, and I will talk more about campaign structure, campaign segmentation, depending on which stage of the account you are in, just a little bit later. Then for asset group segmentation, so firstly, if you're running a full like a feed only PMax campaign, then you really don't need to do it. There is no particular reason on why would you create different asset groups when you're running a feed only PMax campaign, because it is mainly going to just show on the shopping feed, right? So all of those ads are going to lead to the product page directly, individually. So there you don't need to do it. But if you're running a full stack PMax campaign, you must make sure that you are segmenting them by the different categories. So again, you can, like, if let's say you're selling on your store, you sell watches and also jewelry, so you'll have one asset group for watches, and all of the assets will be relevant to that particular theme. And in the other asset group, that would be for jewelry, and that will have again all the assets that are only relevant to your jewelry products, right? Because anyone who comes from search ads or like display ads or YouTube ads, they will be led to one URL, and you want to give them correct URL and correct descriptions, assets, etc., to create maximum relevance. All right, now let's bring all of it together. So all of this, how do you utilize this in actual campaigns, in when actually running your account? So if you're starting your account from scratch, this is how you would structure your campaigns when starting out. So your main campaign is going to be a feed only Performance Max campaigns with your best sellers or your high margin products. So feed only, again, as I said, when you don't have conversion data, don't even consider running a full stack PMax campaign. That will waste a lot of budget for you. So you run a feed only PMax campaign instead with only your best sellers. So again, if you have a lot of different products on your website, right, you might have some conversion data, some performance data from other channels, like maybe organically, or maybe running ads on Facebook, for example. So you want to initially maximize your chances of winning, so you start with your best sellers and you give them majority of your budget. Then you have another feed only PMax campaign for the rest of your products. Again, obviously you would make sure that only your best sellers are in this campaign, and for the rest products campaign, you are excluding these best sellers. Then also I would highly suggest you to run a brand search campaign, so that will only have branded keywords within it. And make sure that you have some brand search volume. If you're doing any form of marketing, you might have people searching for you, but you can go to Google Ads Keyword Planner and see if your brand name has any search volume. If yes, then also run brand search campaign. Initially, each conversion data that you can get is really important for you. Initially, the entire goal is to collect enough conversion data to make the algorithm work. That is what you need initially. So what that also means is you don't dilute your conversion data, or you don't create too many campaigns. That is a very big issue. Don't create too many campaigns when you're starting out. So what I would also say is that you are really constrained on budget. If you have really low budget initially, you can consider running just your best sellers campaign to start with, and you can avoid the rest products campaign initially. That is a completely viable strategy if you are more restricted on budget. For budget distribution, you can have your bestsellers campaign on roughly 80% of the budget, then the rest products for 10% of the budget, and for brand search you can have 10% of the budget again, and this can vary by 5 to 10%. That doesn't really matter. For bidding strategy, you would start this campaign on conversion value, the same with this. And for brand search, we pretty much in most of the cases utilize target impression share bidding strategy, so that is also what I would suggest you. Now, if you're like a single product store, or if you have just one hero product, then obviously you can just run this one campaign and you don't need to run the rest of the products campaign, because you don't have any other products to promote, right, or any other products that you want to run. So that's also completely fine. Last point, again, like I'm repeating this multiple times because this is really important. Like, don't forget the fundamentals. Initially, your goal is to consolidate and collect as much conversion data as possible. So don't launch too many campaigns. Launch only a few campaigns, collect as high quality conversion data and as much conversion data as possible. That is how you are able to make Google work, by giving it enough conversion data. So you start with this, you make this work, you start scaling this, you scale it up to some point, a certain point. but then you need a better campaign structure, a more effective campaign structure to utilize your budget more effectively, and this is how you then structure your account. So then you would have a feed only index campaign. What I mean by index is the products that are at your target ROAS or above your target ROAS or very near or very close to your target that you want from your product. So again, those are your best sellers, but you can also narrow down your best sellers to more segments, and this is just different segments within your best sellers. So you can also call this a best sellers campaign. Then you would also have an under index campaign. So under index, as the name suggests, are your underperformers, so they are not achieving your target, they are far from your target. Now, first thing that you need to consider now, or you should know now, is that at this point you're not looking at our conversion data or performance data from other platforms. At this point you're looking at the conversion data and performance data within Google, right? So this segmentation now is based on how your products are performing on Google, and you don't do this manually. You use different scripts. There are both free and paid options available. You can use those to do this in a more automated way, because if you have a lot of products, it will be really difficult to do this manually every single day. You'd burn out on that. Then we have a shopping no index campaign. So no index or zombies means that items that have barely got any clicks or barely any impressions. So we want to test them out. When Google starts spending or spending a lot of money on a particular campaign, it generally prioritizes a few products, and it often leaves out a lot of different products that have not got enough clicks or any clicks at all. And you still want to test them because you have them in your inventory. So you want to find out if they're high performers, if you're best sellers, or they are your underperformers, right? So you launch them in a separate campaign with a separate budget to test them out. Then we also run a shopping catch-all campaign. This is just a safety net with all the different products. Maybe we might have missed some of these products, they might not have been labeled correctly, so we also want them to be just have like a safety net for them. Now you might be wondering that why do we have an under index campaign? That is because we still want to try to optimize our underperformers and try to improve performance on them and push them into our best sellers. For budget, it is pretty obvious that our bestseller or index campaign is going to have the majority of the budget. Feed only and all of these other three campaigns will have much lower budget in comparison. Ideal split would look like, for example, 70% of the budget here and 10% each for all of these three campaigns. Now again, bidding strategy is really crucial over here, because at this point you're running a whole ecosystem that works together hand in hand. So your bidding strategy also has to make sense. So how we structure bidding is we're running this on target ROAS, but we have a lower target ROAS comparatively compared to these other campaigns on our index campaign. The reason being that these are our best performers. So in Google's auction, we want Google to push these products aggressively because we know that they perform. So we want Google to prioritize these products first whenever it takes our account in an auction. This is what we want, and that is why we have a lower target ROAS on the index campaign on our bestsellers. For our under index campaign, we have a higher target ROAS than the index campaigns or an equal target ROAS. So what we do is we initially, ideally we want to have a higher target compared to the index campaign, so it makes sense because those are our underperformers. But sometimes what happens is that the campaign spend starts to tank because they are performing very poorly. So then what we try to do is to have a target ROAS which is equal to the index campaign. So again, they are equal in terms of priority, but since this campaign has more budget, it will obviously spend more. But the ideal goal is to have a higher target ROAS on the under index. And exactly the same thing with no index products. Actually, what we used to do earlier is that we used to run this no index campaign on maximize clicks bidding strategy. Up until very recently, that is what we used to do. But then now we notice a flaw with that is when you run a campaign on max clicks, most of these products will not perform good because it is a click-based bidding strategy. And then obviously by nature most of them will be labeled as under index, right? So then it defeats the whole purpose of the campaign, and we are not being able to find high performers or best sellers from this campaign. So now we run this campaign also on a target ROAS bidding strategy, and that we are now noticing is a much better strategy. For the shopping cancel campaign, we run this at 5% of the total budget and a very low target, because again, this is just a safety net. That is the whole purpose of it. Now, apart from feed only or performance max campaigns, we also want to run more campaigns because we don't want to have one single full stack PMax campaign doing everything as Google promotes it to be. It doesn't work very well that way. We want to have individual campaigns for individual channels and doing their own individual things. That is way more effective. So we also run a non-brand search campaign because again, we don't want PMax to do search for us. So we have a separate non-brand search campaign running in most of the accounts, unless it is not performing well, then that is a separate case. We also run a brand search campaign and a branded shopping campaign as well. Now this category right here is, if you have any other reason to segment. For example, you might have a few products that have a much higher margin, so much lower break-even ROAS, so completely different goal for them, right? And then you don't want to mix those products with these other ones because it doesn't make sense, right? They have a different target. So you want to create a different segmentation or just a separate campaign. If there are just a few of those products, you can have a separate campaign for your highest margin items, right? Because there is a different goal with them. By the way, I already have a case study on my channel in which we're utilizing a structure pretty similar to this. So you can go and watch that if you want like a live example. And again, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it manually. For us, we use Supermetrics. We use a custom script within Supermetrics for us. But there are a lot of free and paid options available that you can utilize to create these labels automatically. You cannot, do this manually. That is not possible, or you should not do it. All right, now let me quickly show you how to set up both of these campaigns. So I'll go into my tests Google Ad account and I'll create a new campaign. So the objective is sales, and we only want to have purchase as a primary conversion action. A Performance Max campaign, and make sure that your merchant center is connected, obviously. In my case, I'm doing it right now, I think. But yeah, and also have a naming convention, a proper naming convention. This is how we name our campaigns. So let's say we are doing this as a bestseller campaign. For bidding strategy, we want to start with maximize conversion value, so I'll leave it on that. And you don't need to utilize customer acquisition or customer retention bidding strategies. Don't do that. We haven't really seen any major positive impact with that. So at least for now, just ignore them. Click on next. Then this is where you'll choose your location, and then make sure to click on location options and choose presence over here, because by default it will be selected as presence or interest. And what that means is if someone is not living in your targeted location but they have some interest, have shown some interest online, the Google can still advertise your products to them, and you might not even ship your products over there. So make sure it is selected as presence. Then we don't run political ads, and all of these settings you don't need to change any of them. You can just click on next again. Now we are at the asset group level, so this is where you would name your campaign. After doing that, this is your listing groups or product groups. So this is where you can choose your products. If you're going to run all of the products, then you can just leave it as it is. But if you're going to use a selection of products, then you can categorize or segment it from here. You can segment it by ID if these are just a few products, or you might have a categorization on the product type level. You can do it from there, or otherwise you can also do it on the custom label if you have created those. So again, you do that from here. And if it is going to be just a feed only campaign, then you just optimize your listing group. You just choose the products that you want to run, and you don't touch any of these assets. You don't even touch them. You can just completely ignore them if it is a feed only campaign. On the other hand, if it is going to be a full stack campaign, then you give it all of these assets, headlines, log headlines, descriptions, images, videos, all of that. For headlines, how we like to structure them is in 3 different pillars. First pillar is the relevancy. So if you're selling watches, then it would be relevant to that, like affordable watches or luxury watches, whatever that is. Then we like to have some headlines for the offer. So you might have some offer on your website, buy one get one, 10% off, etc. So use your offers over here. Then the last pillar would be social proof, your ratings, your money back guarantee, all of that. Then coming to the audience signals, there are 2 elements within audience signals. First is the search themes, and second is the actual audience signal. For search theme, how we do it is, so let's say if you're running some campaigns already, what you would do is you would take your best, or with the campaign with the most conversion data. It should be a non-brand campaign, right? You open that, you go to the search terms, and you open the last 90 days. You download all of those search terms. Then in the Google Sheet, you sort it out by the most conversions. So you take your top 30 to 50 top converting search terms, you copy them as it is, and you just paste them over here. If there are some brand terms within that, you can create a filter to exclude your brand terms. So you want to do only non-brand terms in the search theme. For audience signal, so in our SOP, what we do is when we are running other campaigns like shopping or search, we put some audiences on observation mode so that we can see what audiences are converting the best. Then if you're launching a PMAX campaign, we take all of those audiences and we put them over here in the audience signal. But if it is a new campaign with no conversion data with new account, then you can just sift through these and try to find a few 10 to 15 audiences that are the most relevant to you. Wait a second. So I would do this and a new audience. So here you'd find audiences that are relevant to you. Then also what works really good with PMAX is basically the whole goal with this is you want to tell PMAX what your ideal customers look like. And the best way to do that is by giving it first party data like your website visitors, your add to cart, your Shopify purchasers, etc. So give all of those audiences over here. And also if the campaign account has no conversion data, it is a new account, then you can utilize search themes with your keyword research. So you find 10 to 15 keywords that you want to ideally target and you give those in your search themes. And what we also like to do is if you're running like a feed only PMAX campaign, we like to create different asset groups, 2 to 3 at a time with the different audiences. So we like to test audiences. For example, one we might have top performing audiences, one we might have open targeting, no audience at all. So we like to test a few different audiences and also see which audience is doing the best for that particular account. So that is how you quickly set up a PMAX campaign. Now the last part, which is also pretty crucial, is brand removal. You must create a proper segmentation with your Google Ads campaign. Now a caveat to that is when you're starting off fresh, no conversion data, then I would suggest you to run a brand search campaign, but don't exclude your branded terms from these campaigns because you need conversion data in the account. You need to get more conversions and make it work. So you don't need to exclude brand terms initially unless you have an absolute shit ton of people searching for you. Then you might have to remove branded terms completely over here. But if that is not the case, then don't exclude brand initially. Do that later. So to do that, you initially when PMAX campaigns launched, it was very difficult to do this, but now it is pretty simple. You can just have common negative keyword list. You can have all of your different brand variations within that, and you can just apply that list over to the PMAX campaign. That is completely fine. That works now. So that is it for this Performance Max course. If you found this helpful, feel free to watch the rest of my content, and I'll see you in the next one.